Hello to everyone. My name is Nataraj. In this video, I am going to talk about DAO, Data Access Object, the most regularly used design pattern or component class of real time. Almost you take any Java project and we cannot think about Java project without utilizing what? DAO. Persistency is involved, persistence logic is involved in the project development, means definitely DAO will be there. Data Access Object. We know that Hibernate, JDBC, and other ORM softwares, EasyB, entity beans, all this comes under persistence technologies. Persistence technologies. Because using these technologies, we can develop persistence logic. What is persistence logic? It is the logic that can be used to interact with the database software and to manipulate database data. Some part of industry also calls this one as persistence access technologies. Persistence access technology. Why? Because using these technologies, we can talk with what? Persistence stores, something like Oracle, MySQL, this kind of what? Database software, and we can access the data that is there in that what? Persistence stores. So then what is DAO? All database softwares are called persistence stores or persistence storage technologies. Oracle, MySQL, all this comes under persistence storage technologies or persistence stores. Next, JDBC, Hibernate, all this comes under persistence technologies or persistence access technologies. Then what is DAO? Yes, it's a pattern or it's a set of classes or set of component classes which can be used to separate persistence logic from other logics of the application. You know that the main logic of the application that processes the request and generates the results is called business logic or service logic. Similarly, the logic that interacts with the database software or any persistence stores and manipulates persistent data of persistence store is called as what? Persistence logic. So we take DAO class or DAO component to separate persistence logic from other logics of the application. Its main intention is making persistence logic as what? Reusable logic in multiple components of the application. At the same time, it is even useful to separate persistence logic from other logic to have the flexibility of modification. That means even though we changed persistence logic, other logics of the application should not be disturbed. So that is intention of what? Developing DAO. Then how to develop this DAO? So in the development of DAO, no doubt multiple components will be there. I'll come to that in a moment. But whenever we develop DAO, generally one class will be there, okay, having persistence logic. In this class, we have to place two things. One is query part. Other one is code part. One is query part, other one is what? Code part. At the top of the DAO class, we will write all the SQL queries that are required to use in the application. Suppose I want to do 10 persistence operation. Okay, generally for 10 persistence operation, we have to use 10 SQL queries. And all 10 SQL queries will be placed at the top of the DAO class. Then what about code part? Code part is very simple. In the same class, we will take a lot of methods. In those methods, we'll try to keep what? Persistence logic. And this persistence logic is responsible taking the support of those queries and manipulating database data. That means performing insert, update, delete operations. Sir, in one project, how many DAO classes can be there? Industry generally follows two strategies. Okay, industry generally follows what? Two strategies. Strategy number one DAO per one table. What is that? One DAO per one table. If your project is having very less number of tables, that means less than 100 tables, then generally industry prefers placing what? One DAO class per one table. That means in that DAO class, the table related all persistence logics will be developed, all persistence operations will be done. Strategy number 2 is one DAO per related tables. Suppose in your project nearly 200, 300 tables are there, above 100 tables are there. So developing one DAO class for every table is very complex process. That's why what people will do, they will take 4 or 5 related tables. For 4 related tables, one DAO class they will be written. In that one DAO class, all those 4 or 5 tables related what? Persistence logic will be developed. That means that 4 or 5 tables related queries, related persistence logic will be placed in one DAO class. So that much important it is. Then where this DAO class will be utilized? This DAO class is always helper class for service class. Service class is nothing but the Java class where business logic is available. Something like this. If it is a typical web application, browser nothing but client, gives request to servlet, nothing but controller. Controller passes the request to another Java class called what? Service class. And service class will take the support of what? DAO class in order to perform persistence operations. But one thing you let me say, the inputs required for a DAO class generally will come in the form of BO class object data, business object data. In other video also I talked about BO class. If service class wants to pass more than 3 inputs to DAO class, the method of DAO class should not be designed having more than 3 parameters. It should be designed having what? BO, business object. Similarly, if DAO class wants to pass multiple results to service class, one result means DAO class method can send that result as a return value to service class. But more than one result, 2 results, 3 results, 4 results that are generated because of persistence logic execution, that time those results should be delivered to service class in the form of BO class object data. Why it is called BO object? So generally service class and DAO classes are called business tier components. Which components? Business tier. In this business tier environment, business logic will be there, persistence logic will be there. See how service class is passing data to DAO in the form of BO object. How DAO class is passing data back to service class in the form of BO object. That means this object representing data related to business tier environment. What tier environment? Business tier environment. That's why this class is named as what? BO class. Right? Okay. In a typical DAO class, DAO pattern or DAO development, we will see 3 things here. We will see 3 resources. Number 1, DAO interface. DAO interface. Example, employee DAO. DAO implementation class. Example, employee DAO IMPL class. This DAO IMPL class implements DAO interface. C DAO factory. DAO factory class. Example employee DAO factory. DAO interface contains declaration of the persistence methods. DAO implementation class implements DAO interface and maintains the persistence logic in those methods by using one or other persistence technology. DAO factory basically contains the logic to create and return DAO implementation class object. Sir, why should I take DAO interface? Very simple. Tomorrow implementation class name is changed, or if you write multiple implementation classes for what? Interface. If interface support is there, in service class we can refer DAO class object through interface reference variable. That means implementation class name is changed, or if you write multiple implementation classes, no problem. Any implementation class object you can refer through what? DAO interface reference variable in the service class. Then what is need of factories? Factory is another design pattern that provides abstraction on object creation. Factory work is creating and returning objects here. When you ask factory to give object, it will give object. How that object is given, you are least bothered. For example, you go to ice cream, ask ice cream, they will give ice cream. We are least bothered about how that ice cream is created. Whether they have followed X process or Y process or Z process, first they prepared X or Y or Z. We never bothered anything. So we ask ice cream, they will give ice cream. Similarly, when you ask factory class, give me object, it will give object. In this process, it hides the entire process that is involved to create the object. For example, sometimes you have to create object using what? Zero param constructor. Sometimes you have to create object using parameterized constructor. Sometimes while creating one object, you have to create another object as dependent object, and you have to pass that object while creating the first object. But once you ask factory class give me object, it will give that object. It never makes you to bother about what? How that object is created. So for that reason, we never make the clients of DAO pattern or the clients of DAO class like something like service class, worrying about how to create DAO class object with new keyword or with some other new keyword or with zero param constructor, one param constructor, nothing. We provide one static method in DAO factory, and everyone calls that what is that static method of DAO factory class in service class or some other class. They get the DAO object. That too we never expose implementation class name. We refer that object through what? DAO interface reference variable. Using that we'll start accessing various methods that are there in what? DAO class. So ultimate conclusion is DAO interface contains declaration of persistence method. DAO IMPL class contains SQL queries or other persistence queries at the top of the class as private static final string variables values, string variable values, and contains lot of persistence methods. What is method? Having persistence logic to manipulate the data. DAO factory is responsible, creating and returning what? DAO IMPL class object. So it happily provides abstraction to the programmer or other component to get DAO IMPL class object. Fine. So let's see a sample DAO, having all these things. So I will take employee DAO.java, employee DAO.java. This is my interface. public interface employee DAO. Here is my method public int insert, public int insert. Okay, I said now I want to insert more and more values. Then we will try to pass BO object, employee BO. Employee BO is one BO class where a lot of properties are there to hold persistable data. Now I am taking one more thing called employee DAO impl.java. Here I am taking what? Public class employee DAO impl, employee DAO impl implements employee DAO interface. Here first one, query part. I will be placing first query part. What is that? Private. Why? I am not going to use these queries outside of the class. I am going to use these queries only in this class. That's why I am going to take private. Private static final string. You know that static final variables are called what? Constants. So all SQL queries in DAO class must be declared as what? Constant. So private static final string, what is that? Insert underscore emp underscore query. Generally we know that all constants will be taken as what? Uppercase letters. And moreover, while placing these queries in the DAO class, there are some standards to follow. It is recommended to take entire query in uppercase letters. In case of Hibernate, if you are writing SQL query, the domain class and domain class property should be maintained as what? Case sensitive values. But if it is normal SQL, yes, you have to take all uppercase letters. It's suggested, it's not compulsory, it's suggested. Next, better to avoid star symbol in the query. If you are writing select query kind of thing, you want to select all the columns of the table, don't use star symbol. You always write column names one after another. Why? Why should I avoid star symbol? Star means all column values will come into result set object. Tomorrow one column is added or reduced, again problem. If you specify column names, problem will not be there. Why should I declare queries at the top of the DAO class? You may ask me. Because right now we are declaring queries at the top of the class. Now, suppose 10 methods are there having 10 persistence logic in my DAO class. Every method is having its own query. And I placed a query in the method definition itself. Tomorrow, table name is changed. Or column name is changed. Or some other information is changed. Then what happens? What happens? You have to go to each method, you have to search each method, where is that query, because sometimes each method may have 100 lines of code, 200 lines of code. Searching for that particular place and modifying that one is very complex. If all queries are placed at the top of the class, something like this. When our table is changed, when our query is modified, I need not to search for queries here and there. That's why, okay, all queries are recommended to place at the top of the DAO class. So if you just separate persistence logic, that is not DAO here. You have to follow all these standards. So right now, let me take one insert query. Insert into employee values. You know that we have to pass the parameters. Yes, query part is over. Now I want to develop the method, code part. Public, what is the method? Int. What is there? Insert. What is this? Employee BO. If you want to know more about BO class, DTO class, VO class, please refer my previous videos. So there I have talked exclusively about what the three different flavors of Java Bean, the three different flavors of Java Bean. Okay, that's nice. Here I am going to write some persistence logic. Yes, you may use JDBC code, you may use Hibernate code, that depends upon. Right now queries are there, na SQL queries. I am assuming that here JDBC code only there. And more important, here you should not catch and handle the exceptions. Why, sir? If you catch and handle exception, indirectly we are suppressing exception propagation. You are eating the exception. Actually what happens, in real time? Here we don't catch and handle the exception. We just declare them to be thrown. So that whenever exception is raised, it goes to service class, because service class calls these methods, na? Service class also will not catch and handle the exceptions. Why? If we catch and handle, their own exception will be suppressed. That's why it also declares them to be thrown. Then where it goes to? Controller. Controller means servlet. Servlet is a presentation tier component. So there it will be propagated. To whom? Controller servlet. Controller servlet catches and handle the exception. So in the catch block, it uses request dispatcher dot forward method to forward the control to one error JSP. In that error JSP, we will try to display what? Exception related messages as non-technical messages. Observe very carefully. You should not write try catch block. You should always declare exception to be thrown. Maybe I am not putting in the code, okay. When I explain project architecture in a separate video, I will highlight that. But I am just talking about what? The basic point here. Should not catch and handle the exception. In DAO class method, you have to declare the exception to be thrown. So that control goes to service, raised exception goes to service class. In service class also, you should not catch and handle the exception. There also you have to declare to be thrown. So from there control goes to controller class. The raised exception goes to what? Controller when exception is raised. There you catch and handle exception using try catch block. In the catch block you take the support of what? rd.forward to forward the control to error page. In the error page you display exception related messages as what? Non-technical messages. That is what we will do it. But right now we are not concentrating on that angle. I'm just talking about the basic knowledge of what? DAO. So this is my persistence logic. Right. Now let me develop factory class. Employee DAO factory. Public static. What is there? Return type should be employee DAO. Why? Because you know that if method return type is interface, that method can return any implementation class object. Any implementation class object. Tomorrow if you write one more implementation class for interface, no problem. That's why you should always take this method return type as what? This method return type as what? Interface. This factory class is basically responsible what? To create and return object. That's why I am taking method name as what? Get instance. Return new employee DAO IMPL. Return new employee DAO IMPL. Here it is creating and returning what? DAO IMPL class object. If multiple implementation classes are there for multiple database software or for multiple technologies, checking the condition and creating and returning appropriate what? DAO implementation class object. If any dependence objects are there to be created to create DAO IMPL class object, everything will be taken care by DAO factory. Okay. So that's why we say DAO factory provides abstraction on the process of creating what? DAO class object. So you are least bothered. But right now I am creating object in a simple manner. Now the question is, how this class will be utilized in the service class? You said no? Let's see. This is my employee service class. Employee service dot Java. Public class employee service. That's nice. In this place, let us assume my business method is register. Public string, because registration success or failure I have to return, that's why return type is register. Next, register. Generally inputs comes to service class in the form of what? DTO. So that's why DTO. If you are looking for more details about DTO class, BO class and VO class, please refer other videos where I have already talked a lot about these things. So here some business logic here. I am not worried about that. Some business logic. Okay. Then I should start using DAO. Use DAO. But DAO class insert method is expecting what? BO. So that's why first of all I have to create one BO object. Create BO object. Business object. How to create? Employee BO. New employee BO. Here you have to call some setter methods to set data to what? That BO object. To simply set data to that BO object. Maybe in this BO what data will be there? The data that you want to persist. And some inputs you may gather from DTO, some inputs you may gather from business logic execution. Whatever it is, whatever data you want to persist, you keep in what? BO object. For example, to the DTO I am getting number, name, marks 1, marks 2, marks 3. Using business logic, you calculate a total, average and result, pass or fail. But when it comes to persistence, you want to persist only what? Number, name, total, average and result. You don't want to persist M1, M2, M3. Then you have to create BO object, okay, having number, name, total, average, result. You should not bother about what? Marks 1, marks 2, marks 3. So ultimately in this example, BO contains the data that you want to persist. So after that you have to get that DAO. But already I said the easiest way of getting DAO is through what? Factory. Because factory will take care of what? Object creation. You don't worry about what? Object creation. So that's why employee DAO. DAO is equal to employee DAO factory dot get instance. Get instance. Here you happily call the method. What is that? Int count is equal to DAO dot int count is equal to DAO dot insert of BO. So from there control goes to this. Here you can write a logic. What logic? If count is equal to 0, if count is equal to 0, return what is that? Registration succeeded. Else return registration failed. End of the class. End of the method. Like this we can develop the service class. Observe very carefully. I am not bothered about how DAO class object is created. I just called static method of what? Factory class. That gives me DAO object. Even I am referring that object with what? Interface reference variable. What's the advantage? Tomorrow implementation class name changes, or if I want to create object for another implementation class, I should not get the problem. So everything will be taken care by whom? DAO factory, and that gives me a DAO implementation class object. I am referring through what? Interface reference variable. Which interface? DAO interface reference variable. So like this, okay, DAO class and service classes will be developed. What's the advantage? Observe now carefully. Tomorrow persistence logic is modified. I need not to disturb my service class and other class. Just modify what? DAO class. No. Not only in one service class, I need DAO class persistence logic in multiple service classes. No problem, we can use that. That means because of DAO pattern what I have implemented here, okay, my persistence logic has become reusable. My persistence logic has become, what is that? Flexible to modify without disturbing other logics. Moreover, tomorrow table name, query, column names or something are detailed. So I can easily modify that part by searching for queries at the top of the DAO class, because we kept it standard not to write queries in the middle of the code. We decided to write queries at the top of the DAO class. To get this kind of flexibility to modification, flexibility of modification, and for getting other benefits whatever I talked earlier, DAO is what? Quite a recommended design pattern in real-time project development. Almost every project of real-time will be utilizing what? DAO pattern. So this is about DAO. Okay, what code I have written here is what? Like a pseudo code kind of thing. Just I have given planning of DAO pattern and what? Service pattern. So I hope you benefited with this video. Alright, you can catch me for more videos in this particular channel.